to what's been going on over the last 4 or 5 hours?
Well, the sirens stirred up things quite a bit here, and you can understand that. But we have talked to Saudis who are in our vicinity, and they seem genuinely pleased. There's been a strong will here for some time to go to war, to wipe out, as they see it, the threat to the kingdom.
And you yourselves have been sent to the shelters a few times?
Twice during the past several hours, air raid warnings went off. We were told by the Marines that a Scud missile alert was in effect. Everybody was evacuated and sent into the basement with the gas masks that we've all been issued here by our representative companies.
Can you hold it up a little higher?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can now.
This is essentially the mask. We also have chemical warfare suits, but for the most part, the masks were what were being carried by everyone here.
Our medical editor, Tim Johnson, having done a study of this over the last several days, told me that the masks issued to U.S. forces in the Gulf were not up to the par of America's allies in the Gulf. Have you heard anything about that?
I've heard that same criticism, and in fact, the gas masks that we purchased for our people here are of British design, if that tells you anything.
What else, Bill? What about military activity elsewhere in the province? Have you been able to get a handle on that? Is the Joint Information Bureau there giving you anything at all this morning?
So far, no. We had posed this question much earlier this evening when the attack began, and we were told that the flow of information would come first from Washington, probably the White House, and then it would come through the Pentagon, and eventually it would filter down to Riyadh, and maybe someday here to the Eastern Province, which is one of the major military staging areas. So that's been the chain of command, and we've heard no further military details at this hour. Okay,
Bill, thanks very much. We look forward to talking to you a little later on. We want to go now to the United Nations here in New York. You earlier today heard the UN Secretary General express his deep disappointment that hostilities had begun, but ABC's Lynn Sher is standing by at the UN with the Kuwaiti ambassador to the UN, Mohammed Abul Hassan. Lynn.
Yes, Peter, as you say, the ambassador is here. He found out about the attack the same way the rest of us did, by watching television. No advance warning. Ambassador, your reaction to the attack tonight?
Well, my reaction is really, I felt that pity we have put so much of effort to achieve the resolution of this conflict through peaceful means. Whether Arab initiatives, Islamic initiative, international initiative, a lot of emissaries, high-ranking people from all sects of life went to Saddam Hussein to plea for complying with the will of the Security Council and the will of the international community, but with no prevail. Secretary General's trip was unfortunately without any result. We were very much saddened to hear just yesterday from the Minister of Information of Iraq a statement saying that he does not want, or his government does not want to solve this conflict peacefully, and that he welcomes war. That was a turning point to us. Therefore, I mean, we are very sorry to see that the liberation of Kuwait could not be achieved by peaceful means, but anyhow, peace should be preserved at any price.
But this is exactly what your government in exile has been pushing for, is it not?
Well, my government, I mean, is always for a peaceful resolution. Otherwise, we could not have come to the Security Council. We did not plea for countries to go to Iraq, and we are on record supporting all efforts until Secretary General's effort.
Your efforts now will focus on the Security Council once again. We understand that they will be meeting later this evening. Ambassador Pickering, the U.S. ambassador, told us that that they will be talking to them. Just very briefly, is there anything that you expect out of that meeting?
Well, I don't expect that Security Council, I mean, will act differently than it should act, which is to confirm that the, I mean, operation is authorized by Security Council Resolution 678.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Peter?
Thank you, Ambassador Abul Hassan. Thank you, Lynn Sher at the United Nations. We will be going back to the United Nations on a regular basis. It has come in the last 5.5 months to play a vastly larger role in American foreign policy than it has played for many years, and it may be within the realm of possibility that before too long the Iraqis will be looking to the United Nations for some kind of relief if the war continues to go as badly as it has gone in this first night. But we will remind you, as we have been reminded so many times, that these are very early days. And here are the characterizations given to us. There's been no air resistance operations appear to have gone well, and that reports of Iraqis firing their Scud missiles are false. That from the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now it is 10:57 Eastern Time, almost 7 o'clock in the morning in Baghdad. Local stations on ABC can now cut away for their local news. Carol Simpson will continue with the international news for the next half hour out of Washington, and then I will be back with all of my colleagues in half an hour from now for a full-blown version of Nightline. I hope you'll join us. I'm Peter Jennings.
This has been a presentation of ABC News.
Right now, we're all concerned with the outbreak of war in the Gulf. Monitoring the world 24 hours a day. Stay with the experience of ABC News.
This is an Action News special report. War with Iraq.
Hello, I'm Jim Gardner. At 7 o'clock our time, the U.S. went to war against Iraq. As expected, the conflict began with a massive air raid by U.S.-led forces. Our first indication that the war had in fact begun came from ABC correspondent Gary Shepard, who was at the time talking to Peter Jennings live on the World News Tonight. The Shepard report was followed in quick succession by other confirmation, and this is how it played out.
Throughout the entire sky, there are flashes of light. It appears to be some sort of anti-aircraft fire. A couple of flashes on the horizon now. Something is definitely underway here. Something is going on.
The liberation of Kuwait has begun. In conjunction with the forces of our coalition partners, the United States has moved under the code name Operation Desert Storm to enforce the mandates of the United Nations Security Council. As of 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Operation Desert Storm forces were engaging targets in Kuwait and Iraq. President Bush will address the nation at 9 o'clock p.m. tonight from the Oval Office. I'll try to get you more as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
The sky is illuminated now by very large flashes of explosions that I really don't know what they are.
Yeah, well, that's true, Peter, and now the entire city of Baghdad has been blacked out. All the lights except on the very outer periphery of the city have been blacked out. Peter, why don't we see if we can make that light go out? If we have to smash it, let's do it. Let's get that light out. There's one light on in our room, which makes us more visible than we might like to be as we report. So that was a bomb that came down fairly near our hotel.
I haven't seen any incoming air activity at this point. The sirens have gone up and down. We also see some trucks going out on the highway.
All right, Bill, just to be totally clear about this, at any time you wish to leave us, you leave us.
ABC reestablished its signal with Saudi Arabia just a little bit later. At 9 o'clock tonight, President Bush addressed the nation, and it may not be an understatement to say that the world was hanging on his words.
As I report to you, air attacks are underway against military targets in Iraq. We are determined to knock out Saddam Hussein's nuclear bomb potential. We will also destroy his chemical weapons facilities. Much of Saddam's artillery and tanks will be destroyed. Our operations are designed to best protect the lives of all the coalition forces by targeting Saddam's vast military arsenal. Initial reports from General Schwarzkopf are that our operations are proceeding according to plan. Our objectives are clear. Saddam Hussein's forces will leave Kuwait. The legitimate government of Kuwait will be restored to its rightful place, and Kuwait will once again be free. I've told the American people before that this will not be another Vietnam. And I repeat this here tonight. Our troops will have the best possible support in the entire world, and they will not be asked to fight with one hand tied behind their back. This is an historic moment. We have in this past year made great progress in ending the long era of conflict and Cold War. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
And with the launch of the assault on Iraq, Operation Desert Shield became Operation Desert Storm. Pentagon sources say it began with a massive attack by some 100 Tomahawk cruise missiles, most based at sea aboard U.S. warships. The missiles were reportedly followed by hundreds of F-15 fighter bombers flown by U.S., British, Saudi, and Kuwaiti pilots. The Iraqi capital of Baghdad was apparently hit hard. Shortly after the president's address, Defense Secretary Cheney and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Powell shed little light on the raid, other than to say Iraqi response was limited and the mission appears to be going well.
We're not prepared to release any specifics now. I will simply say that the preliminary reports we have received in terms of the success of the operation, and that includes the possibility of casualties, have been very, very encouraging. The operation appears to have gone very well.
General Powell declined to address specific targets, but did say Saddam Hussein was not one of them.
We have not been targeting Mr. Saddam Hussein. The purpose of our bombing facilities in the area of Baghdad is essentially to go after the command and control system of the Iraqi armed forces, and we're looking at principally military targets, command and control installations, air defense sites that could put our planes at risk, but they are militarily oriented targets.
ABC News reports tonight that the presidential palace in Baghdad took a direct hit, and the cable news network sources say that many of the Scud missile launchers aimed at Israel were at least severely damaged. Of course, the city of Philadelphia and the entire tri-state area have been gripped by the drama of tonight's attack. Action News reporter John Rollins is now live at Independence Mall. And John, you find yourself in the middle of a significant anti-war rally tonight.
Yes, Jim, there are several hundred here, as you'll see. Let me walk over here. You might be able to get a better look. Most of these people are young people, and as you said, we are at Independence Mall. This is just a few hundred yards from where, of course, they signed the declaration which led us to the Revolutionary War. These young protesters are chanting peace now. They are not happy with Desert Shield. One generation of Americans, of course, for one generation of Americans, I should say, the question has always been, where were you during Pearl Harbor? Well, after tonight, the question for another generation may be, where were you when Desert Storm was launched?
For thousands, war broke out while they were at a basketball game, Penn versus St. Joe's. Officials decided to play the game rather than postpone it.
Life must go on, that this doesn't have an impact on national security or national interest, and as an educational institution, we'll just continue classes.
And thousands decided to stay and watch. This athletic combat was a temporary diversion from the real thing.
Yes, I'm going to stay there.
You're not going to go back to listen?
No, I'll listen tonight. I'm not going to change anything by going back and listening now.
At Congregation Adath Israel in Bala Cynwyd, the announcement of war came moments before a prayer service. Deborah Selber heard the news and then called her sister in Israel.
It was against 2 a.m. in Israel, and they didn't know anything about the war. And she didn't hear anything, she didn't know anything, she didn't expect it to happen.
In southwest Philadelphia, they were playing pinochle at this VFW hall. The attack found support here. But those who know war worried about the Americans who have been sent in harm's way. What did you feel?
My stomach went right down to the pit. Very scared feeling. I know they have to do it. They're over there, and I'm at back of the troops.
I think he did the right thing. If he let the little guy push everybody around, how far will he go? I mean, he could take another country tomorrow.
And at Penn Sigma Alpha Epsilon House, brothers watched the president tonight. They are too young to remember the divisiveness of Vietnam. They support Desert Storm. And if it should somehow mean a draft...
I don't think I'd have a choice. I mean, if I got called, I'd have to go. I wouldn't like going, but I have to serve my country.
Yeah, I would go, and I'd be proud to go.
Well, a study of contrast, as you can see, as to how Philadelphians spent this rather soggy January 16th evening. Behind me, you can hear, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. You have to shout. It is that loud. I would say there are several hundred anti-war protesters here at Independence Mall right now on what looks like a ceremony that may be picking up steam, actually, and continue through much of the early morning hours. I'm John Rollins, live on the Action Cam in Center City.
John, thank you. Let us switch live from a noisy Independence Mall to a much quieter scene in Washington, D.C., and Action News reporter Vernon Odom. Vern, you have had a chance to talk to some of our local lawmakers after the beginning of hostilities tonight.
I did, Jim. Members of Congress like Bill Gray, the majority whip in the U.S. House, got the word around 7 o'clock tonight that the hostilities had started in the Persian Gulf. Congressman Gray was on the phone for a good portion of the night, calling various members around the country to tell them that formal briefings by the Pentagon will begin tomorrow and on Friday. Those will be closed-door meetings for congressional members, so they'll be flying back in starting tomorrow. Congressman Pete Kosmeier of Bucks County was also in the Capitol tonight, and I talked with both him and Gray about and got their reaction to Operation Desert Storm.
I don't think this is the time for us to get into a debate about who's right, who's wrong, because I can still see those faces of those young men and women from Delaware Valley. I know what their families are going through, and so I'm saddened, but my thoughts and my prayers are with them. I just think this is the time for Americans to come together to pray for those young men and women who are over there and to pray for their families. This is a time of sadness, and this is a time when hopefully this conflict will be over quickly, decisively, and these young men and women will be coming home.
America's fighting men and women are in the air. Like every American, I support them. I support them strongly. There's plenty of time to argue and debate this when they're down, back on the ground, safe at home. But they are my number one concern, and I think the number one concern of the people of the country right now. I think we're going to be gratified, frankly and honestly, that any nuclear capacity he had, the chemical and biological warfare has been destroyed. I think it's important that was done. What he's going to do now, where he is now, whether he's dead or alive, I don't know. But if he's alive and he wants to end this thing, I would think it could be ended fairly quickly by him withdrawing immediately.
Most members of Congress are out of town today and have been most of the week, but two Philadelphia area and Delaware Valley members of Congress and the Senate are with us tonight. First, Congressman Curt Weldon from Delaware County and Senator Frank Lautenberg from New Jersey. Senator, your reaction to what's happened tonight?
Well, it's a fairly somber reaction, Vern. We're behind the president. We're behind our troops. We think that the commitment ought to be full. I was encouraged by the president's message. This is not going to be Vietnam. He's going to lend the support that we need to get a quick and decisive victory, and that's where we all have to be at this moment.
You voted against launching military action right now. Your thoughts about that tonight?
Well, I was for extending the sanctions, but that debate is over. That ended Saturday, and now it's time for us, Democrat, Republican, Americans across this country, to pull together to give our troops the encouragement, to encourage the families back home that their sons and daughters are going to get the best of care, the best of tools with which to win this engagement. That's what we want.
Are you surprised Mr. Bush launched the attack this quickly?
No, I'm not surprised. I had kind of a warning last night when the Pentagon asked for my home phone to make sure they knew where I was. So I was expecting something momentarily. Listen, he did, as he said, exhaust so many opportunities for negotiation. It was time, I think, that he certainly agreed to take action.
Thank you, Senator. Let me talk with Congressman Curt Weldon from Delaware County now. Congressman, you've talked with the Kuwaiti ambassador tonight.
Right, Vernon. I chair the Congressional Task Force on Kuwait. I've been in constant touch with Ambassador al-Sabah, whose brother is leading the resistance movement inside of Kuwait. They have satellite communication inside of Kuwait, and he has confirmed to me that as of this evening there have not been hostilities inside of Kuwait City. The resistance is mobilizing and is prepared to fight for their own liberation and freedom. In addition, at this very hour, which is dawn in Kuwait, the 60 aircraft left from the Kuwaiti Air Force is in the air fighting against the Iraqi troops on the ground to take back their country. And as you heard from Secretary Cheney and Colin Powell, the 4 air forces involved in this operation were the American Air Force, the British, the Saudis, and the Kuwaitis, as was predicted by the administration.
Experts were saying they thought the Iraqi army would be much more effective and the military forces would be much more effective in the daylight. Any information you have on that at this hour?
Well, in the daylight, I think they would have been. They only have about 75 planes that are capable of flying at night, a small number of French Mirage jets. Our briefings in the Armed Services Committee and the hours of hearings that we had showed the most optimistic scenario being one where we took control of the airways very quickly, established it in the evening, and wiped out any ability for air defense. That apparently is what happened. I say apparently because you won't know the full implications until later on this morning.
Thank you very much. From Congressman Curt Weldon and Senator Frank Lautenberg from New Jersey. This is Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News, reporting live from Washington.
Thank you, Vern. Thank you, gentlemen. As you may know, Philadelphia International Airport is a military hub with thousands of soldiers catching flights all over the world. Tonight, those soldiers were somber as they learned that war was finally at hand. We spoke with some of these military men tonight.
I'm glad it done got started. Sooner it starts, sooner it get over.
Can't go around taking what's not yours, you know. And if I'm called, as of now, I'm a soldier, and I'll go and fight.
To tell you the truth, by the time I think they call up me, it'll be over with.
Let's go live now to Action News New Jersey correspondent Nora Mushanek, who is staked out at McGuire Air Force Base. Nora, I know you have not been allowed on the base tonight, but you have managed to talk to people off the base who have profound emotional ties to the happenings across the world.
Jim, what happens here is of great importance to the people who live in and around McGuire Air Force Base and Fort Dix, which is just a few yards away from here. Their friends, their family, and their loved ones are over there in the thick of it.
As of 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Operation Desert Storm forces were engaging targets in Kuwait and Iraq.
The news that war had begun was greeted with tears and cheers tonight at Kelly's Bar in Wrightstown. This is where many soldiers and their families come to share a drink and their worries.
I hope my husband's safe.
Peggy Fountain's husband, Kevin, is a sergeant in the Air Force and has been in the Gulf since December 5th. What's going through your head tonight?
Just that I hope it's over with and my husband comes home safe.
You cheered when the word from the White House came that we had indeed attacked. How come?
We have a job to do, and just want to see it get done.
Everyone stayed glued to the TV here, waiting for the latest details and aching for those in the middle of combat.
It's a little scary, you know, because people we know are getting killed or will be.
Everyone wishes it was over already, and everyone afraid that they're going to lose their loved ones and everything. So everybody's clammed up, really, and they don't know how to handle it.
Military and state police are swarming the gates at McGuire, where there is heavy traffic in and out of the base.
We're just here for traffic, more or less. If they have any problems with people trying to get on the base or not authorized, then we'll assist them that way.
Jim, security here is so tight tonight that we were stopped at least 3 times by New Jersey State Police and the military police while we were on the perimeter of the base. The step up in security is understandable, of course, because military installations have been identified as possible targets for terrorism. That'll do it from McGuire Air Force Base. I'm Nora Mushanek reporting live on the Action Cam.
Nora, a quick question. Given the security measures in effect there, exactly how far are you from the entrance of McGuire?
Jim, we're about a half-mile down the main entrance. The entrance you see behind me is closed down right now. It's open during the day. At nighttime, they use only one entrance. That's up there, and we were uninvited from the area. They told us there was simply too much traffic moving in and out, and that we were pretty much causing a disturbance, and they wanted us out of the area. The military police, as I said, are all over.
So you are being kept at a distance. Nora, thank you very much. Now let's go live to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, and our Delaware correspondent, Lauren Wilson. Lauren?
Jim, we are standing across the street from the Dover Air Force Base because a news blackout is underway tonight. Reporters are no longer allowed on the base. There is a sense of eeriness in this military community tonight. Everyone we talked to appeared to be shaken but not surprised by the news that the United States had gone to war.
Well, right now I'm very frightened. I'm frightened for not only the kids over in Kuwait and Iraq, but also for the people here who might go.
My personal feelings are I'm glad it's starting to get over with, get our men back safely and quickly as possible.
Is there any possibility that you will be going over?
There's a possibility for everybody to go over there. And the sooner we all get back, the happier everybody will be.
Well, I have mixed emotion like everyone because I don't really want to go to war or anything, but from what I hear around the base that it's the right thing to do.
Buses and vans could be seen going into the base tonight. Usually, military men and women can be seen walking about in this community. Many frequent this convenience store. That wasn't the case tonight. Once word got out that aggression was underway, this area looked a lot like a ghost town because all military personnel immediately reported to the base. Now, we have seen a lot more military people reporting to the base in the last few minutes, the last 10 minutes or so. I'm told they're all gathering at a terminal at the rear of the base, and many of their families are there. We can only presume that they are waiting for air transportation to the Persian Gulf. I'm Lauren Wilson reporting live on the Action Cam at the Dover Air Force Base.
Thank you, Lauren. This is a war story, but of course it's also a family story. For families with loved ones in the Persian Gulf, the days of waiting ended tonight. We have reports from Rick Williams and David Murphy on how two of those families reacted to the news. First, here is Rick Williams.
President Bush could offer no comfort to the Peak family tonight in Southwest Philadelphia, a family shaken by the news of war.
When it happened, oh, it was just like somebody had shot me. That's the way I felt.
Youngest son, 25-year-old Darrell Peak, is a soldier in Saudi Arabia. He's been there since Labor Day. For his loved ones here at home, it was just after 7 o'clock when the painful realization came that Darrell may now be in combat, a family's worst fears, despite the president's promise that the war will be a short one.
I hate for it to have happened like this at the expense of the lives of innocent young men, you know. So many over there don't even know why they're there.
Family members say it was just a week ago when Darrell called home, his spirits high, despite the possible dangers ahead. And tonight, bright yellow ribbons that once stood for a family's hope to avoid war has now become a symbol of peace.
I wasn't that close with him, but now that he's over there, it's just such a closeness and such a bond that I'm just praying to God that he hurry up home.
And so the prayers for peace will intensify in the Peaks household, beginning with tonight, this fateful night when Desert Shield suddenly became Desert Storm. Rick Williams, Channel 6 Action News in Southwest Philadelphia.
I'm David Murphy reporting from Northeast Philadelphia, where Ted and Jerry Etling were hanging on President Bush's every word tonight. Their son, Marine Staff Sergeant Ted Etling, is part of the ground force near the Saudi Arabian front line, still waiting for action.
No, I'm not happy. No one wants to see war, but we have to stop this maniac. And the way I look at it, they have my son over there now, and hopefully they'll never have my two grandsons.
Are you proud of your son, sir?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so.
The Etlings are united in their belief that President Bush's actions are not only warranted, but that they'll lead to success. Judging from their son, it's not hard to see why they feel that way. In this videotape of an Armed Forces news story the Etlings received this week in the mail, Staff Sergeant Etling is interviewed during urban assault maneuvers with his men.
We go out here, combat town, roughly 5-6 times a year, 2-3 days at a time, practicing stuff like this. Due to the world situation in the Middle East, you know, this could happen at any given time.
The Etlings say their son is tough, professional, and extremely well-trained. Of course, the one thing the Etlings would like to see more than anything else is their son coming home from the Persian Gulf soon, something President Bush vowed tonight.
Hopefully within a month or so, yes.
You think that it's possible?
Yes, I do.
It's certainly what you're hoping for.
It certainly is, yes.
And it's something hundreds of other parents in the Delaware Valley are hoping for tonight as well. In Northeast Philadelphia, David Murphy, Channel 6 Action News.
During the days and weeks leading up to this climactic night, Iraq had threatened to attack Israel if the U.S.-led multinational force launched an attack against Iraq. As of this hour, that threatened attack has not occurred. Joining us live on the telephone now from Jerusalem, very early in the morning their time, are two Americans from Wilmington, Delaware, a brother and sister. They are now attending the Hebrew University. Their names are Greg and Stevie Schiff. Greg, first let me ask you a question. Earlier this evening, the Israeli state radio told you folks to get your gas masks ready and prepared to use them on quick notice in the event of an attack from Iraq. The situation as tense now, or has it abated some?
It's not that tense at all. Things here in Israel are fairly calm. The country has not gone on alert as far as the civilians are concerned. They have sirens to alert the civilians to an alert situation, and they have yet to do much of anything outside of through the media. And so we're just basically watching everything, just making final preparations in our apartment and just watching.
Stevie, we have heard from some sources that there are indications that the missiles in Iraq aimed at Israel, the missiles that were to launch the threatened attack, may have been severely damaged during the initial American air bombardment on Iraq tonight. Have you heard anything about that watching Israeli state television in your apartment?
Well, we've been getting clips from CNN as in addition to our own people speaking on the news, and that's what we've heard as well. But they're trying not to be overly optimistic at this point, so that the public doesn't get too calm, and then something happens. But from from most people's standpoint right now, Iraq is pretty much immobilized and we're pretty safe.
Stevie, Greg, we only have a couple of seconds left. Your relatives, your parents may be watching this program. Do you have a message for them in Wilmington?
Just our friends and family that we're thinking of them and that we're fine.
Don't worry too much.
Greg and Stevie Schiff, it's nice to talk to you. Be well, and we're glad that everything to this point is okay with you. That's Greg and Stevie Schiff from Wilmington, live from Jerusalem tonight, and we will be back with more of our Action News coverage of the Gulf War in just a moment.
The 7-Eleven Bowl Bash.
He takes it 2 yards deep in the end zone, and he's bringing it out to the 30, shakes off a tackle.
In case unexpected guests drop by, stock up and save on all your soft drinks at the 7-Eleven Bowl Bash. The 7-Eleven Bowl Bash, official sponsor of all your bowl game needs.
Grapefruit must be eaten in the morning.
The man who wrote the book on Florida grapefruit is history.
You don't just have to have it in the morning. You can feel it anytime you feel it. Spice it if you like it as a treat. You just can't beat it. Florida grapefruit.
Fresh Florida grapefruit on sale this week at Shop and Bag Markets.
You don't just have to have it in the morning.
We are back, and I am now with Daniel Pipes, Dr. Daniel Pipes, who is director of the Foreign Policy Research Institute in Philadelphia. Dr. Pipes, you have been watching the events unfold along with us throughout the entire evening. What are the major impressions that you have at this point as to the political ramifications, the global ramifications of the mission so far?
To me, the big news is the fact that Israel has not been attacked by missiles or by aircraft. This means that many dangers of the situation have been perhaps halved, that all those terrible scenarios that we had in mind about Jordan, about Syria, about Israel, about the Arabs in revolt against the West, against their own governments, all these seem much less likely than they did just a few hours ago.
Well, let's explore that for just a second. These are the missiles in our mock-up here that we think were aimed at Israel. We know they have not been launched. That we know. You just mentioned Jordan's involvement in a possible war with Israel. Explain how that might have occurred.
Well, had these missiles from H-2 and H-3 gone off and hit Israel, the Israelis had said that they would retaliate, and they probably would have. Had they done so, they would have gone through Jordan. Had they gone through Jordan, the Jordanians are on record as saying that they would attack the Israeli planes. That would have meant a Jordan-Israel war, probably would have brought in Syria and probably Iraq. You have an all-out Arab-Israeli war taking place.
And may have jeopardized this remarkable coalition that the United States has built against, against Iraq. Of course, we don't mean to talk in the past tense. We're not exactly sure yet what is to come, but so far we know that these missiles have not been launched. If the initial strike against Iraq has been as successful as we are being led to believe by sources that we hear, what might that mean for the Iraqi army and their long-term effort here?
Well, the thing to look for now is whether the Iraqi army and the population at large are going to stay strong, are going to fight the Americans and allies no matter what, or whether they're going to collapse. If they continue to fight, then it could be a prolonged battle. If they collapse, of course, it's going to be over quickly. I suspect it's more likely to be a collapse, but I think that's what the viewers should be thinking about. What's going to happen with the Iraqi military and the Iraqi population?
And when you say quickly, you mean what?
Oh, it could be a matter of days.
I know we're speculating.
It's complete speculation, but it could conceivably be a matter of days.
All right, thank you. We will be in touch with you. Thank you for coming by. A couple of points that we want to make first. At this point, we can tell you that Action News reporter Dan Quayle and Action News photographer Bob Kravitz will be on a Pentagon plane tomorrow morning, leaving Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington and heading for the Persian Gulf. They are being taken over there with select other journalists from around the country, the major news organizations, to help cover the war. What will happen to them exactly when they get to Saudi Arabia, where they will go, we're not exactly sure, and at this point, either are they. They will be under Pentagon supervision. They are on their way. We should also tell you that as long as we are in the critical phase of this crisis, the critical phase of this attack, this war against Iraqi forces, Action News will be here 24 hours a day, along with ABC News, of course, to bring you local perspectives, to bring you reports on what is happening in the Delaware Valley, so you people, our viewers, can have a very good idea and a good sense of what is happening in our area as it pertains to the Gulf War. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Let me tell you my fantasy. I'm driving with the stereo on, the sunroof's open, just me and Michael, winding our way to this little bed and breakfast in my Nissan Stanza. Oh, I know, as fantasies go, it sounds pretty tame. But you should see my real life.
This is a long way from downtown Chicago. Riding mass transit, working late every night. You finally got the raise that got you the gold card, that got you the phone number, that arranges your weekends wherever you want them. But you always want them in Montana. The gold card, only from American Express. Don't leave home without it.
Dave Roberts is here with our 5-day forecast. David?
Heavy thunderstorms rumbled through the area. That heavy stuff is now gone. Here's the call from AccuWeather. Just partly cloudy overnight, 40 to 42. Tomorrow for rush hour, the winds will be here. Out of the west, 15 to 30 miles per hour. Some sunshine in the afternoon, a high of 42 degrees. Then we're going to go up to 46 by afternoon. Windy with some sunshine. That's the call from AccuWeather for tomorrow. On Friday, brisk and chilly, 40 degrees. Colder weather on the way for Saturday, 38 degrees, partly sunny, and Sunday cloudy. The possibility of more rainfall, 42 degrees. Another dip in temperatures, windy and colder, 32 degrees on Monday. So partly cloudy through tonight, going to be a windy day tomorrow. The milder temperature stays, and yes, we will see some sunshine. Jim?
All right, that is our report. Nightline is next with the Persian Gulf crisis. More reports, of course, throughout the evening, throughout the night on ABC and Channel 6. And as I just told you, Action News will be here around the clock for as long as this crisis phase continues. And so for Dave Roberts, all my colleagues here at Action News, I'm Jim Gardner. We will see you through the night, and of course a full report on Action News at 6:30.
This is ABC News Nightline. Now reporting from New York, Peter Jennings.
I'm Peter Jennings. Good evening again. It is 11:30 Eastern Time. It is 7:30 in the morning in Baghdad. The sun is up, and Iraqis in the capital city and elsewhere around the country are emerging to see what the U.S., the British, and to some extent the French, the Saudi, and the Kuwaiti Air Force has done to their country in the last several hours. President Bush says the battle has been joined. Iraqi radio, which is back on the air this morning with verses from the Quran in the main point, says the mother of all battles has been started. We have heard from the President this evening. We have heard from the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The general assessment is that the early stages of the operation, all of which appear to have been from the air, have gone well. The Iraqi response has been limited, and there are fairly good indications that U.S. has achieved a pretty good measure of tactical surprise. In talking to some of our military analysts over the last 15 or 20 minutes, that would appear to indicate to them that the Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from American battleships in the Persian Gulf, some reports have as many as 100 of them being launched, have been able to hit, suppress, or destroy the widespread Iraqi capability to detect incoming other aircraft, namely the early warning system. So it does appear, according to early reports, that the Iraqis have been caught to some degree flat-footed. But a caution from the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to us a short while ago Looking back over previous campaign, he says that BDA, bomb damage assessment, when the first light of the next day comes along, almost invariably leaves military men to some degree disappointed. Ted Koppel has just returned from the Middle East. Ted, what was it like?
Well, I must tell you, it is a strange experience, Peter, when you get on the plane in Amman, and indeed the mood was rather gloomy when we left there this morning, and apparently with good reason. And then we were on a charter jet just to get out of there because some of the commercial planes were not flying. I assume by now Amman Airport is completely closed, and I would assume that most of the airports in the Middle East are closed to anything but military traffic. So we were really out of touch until we got to New York and walked in and quite literally heard at that time that the war had been, or the battle had been, as you have described, joined. Let me for a moment play the role of those people who have perhaps just come home and now want to hear what it is that has been happening over the past few hours. And if I may, could I take this opportunity just to debrief you? I know you've had a long, hard day. But before you go back and get some well-earned rest, maybe you can brief me and brief the rest of the country as we're doing it. Do we have any idea how many planes were involved in the attacks on Iraq, and any indication yet of precisely what targets?
The early answer is there were several hundred aircraft at the very least, and perhaps as many as 1,000. So you can get some indication of how crowded the skies were over Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Kuwait tonight. They took off from various air bases in Saudi Arabia. They may also have come from other countries in the Middle East. They did not, to the best of our knowledge, come from Turkey. And the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs went out of their way to point out that this was already a multinational operation with a Saudi and Kuwaiti participation that was at the very least symbolic. There is no indication precisely of what they hit in terms of information coming back to us. But they, if we can look at a map for a second, appear to have been hitting almost everything. Some of the very early reports were that the missile sites in the northwest corner of Iraq, which were in a position to launch Scud missiles which could have reached Israel, were taken out very early on. That was Israeli intelligence very early on, telling us through ABC's Dean Reynolds, if you look up in the left-hand corner of the screen, that's about where it is, thank you very much, that went down pretty quickly. Everything else appears to have been suppressed, though we are reminded constantly, Ted, that it may take many attacks on a number of these targets, on air installations, on missile installations, on, as the President said in his address tonight, chemical and bacteriological weapons installations. It may take many attacks to put these things out of commission altogether, so there is a watchword of caution waiting for bomb damage assessment this morning.
The President, as you know, Peter, throughout the weeks, has been taking the position that this is, after all, an international coalition against the Iraqis. As this war begins, however, is it an international war, or are all these planes American planes?
Well, they're virtually all American planes. It's been very difficult, I think, as you know and everybody else knows, to launch an attack which coordinates a great many forces. The British have been probably more involved than anybody else with their Tornadoes on some targets. But this whole question of Saudi and Kuwaiti participation, as best we can tell, has in large measure been symbolic. But remember, that's very important for the Kuwaitis, very important for the Saudis, and very important for the subsequent politics of the Middle East.
The President was saying all along, or at least there were suggestions all along, that this would begin at night precisely because the United States enjoys such enormous advantages, both electronically and in terms of pilot capability, with nighttime missions. But from what I've been able to understand, and you must understand, I hear a little bit at the airport terminal, the pilot of our flight, and I don't want to embarrass him in any way, was nice enough to let us sit in the cockpit with him, at least while we were still on the runway. We had to get out once we took off so that I was able to hear the President. But the suggestion is that it has only been Air Force planes until now. Why?
No, I don't think we do necessarily know that it's only Air Force planes. In fact, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs went out of his way to say that all four services have been involved. And if that is correct, and he said that deliberately and politically deliberately, because it's important to all the services that they participate, this may well mean that even Army helicopters were used up adjacent to or along the Kuwaiti border. But what we have had tonight is, according to him, a very much joint services attack, which would have been Air Force from at least 2 or 3 bases in Saudi Arabia, aircraft carrier attack planes from both the Persian Gulf and also the Red Sea, because there are 4 American aircraft carriers in the Red Sea where they're, quite frankly, a lot closer politically as well as geographically to Iraq. So everybody participated.
Now, in terms of the casualties, again, another one of those little fragments that we picked up quite literally now in the taxi coming here to the studio from the airport. The suggestion is that there have been no U.S. casualties, no lost U.S. planes. Is that, first of all, a reality, and secondly, is it the kind of reality that will stand up after the first few hours have gone? In other words, do they know precisely what's happening? Are all those planes back?
Well, we quite frankly don't know, and the military has been, for both strategic reasons and others, very calculatingly careful about how much information is put out. And they've been very candid, and I think the country clearly supports it at this particular moment. A lot of pilots are still in the air. A lot of pilots have not been back and debriefed. But I thought the Secretary of Defense was very careful on the question of casualties. He didn't say there hadn't been any. I don't know who you were listening to, but he did not say specifically that there had been no casualties. He said no word on casualties yet.
All right, Peter Jennings, thank you very much indeed. I know you've got to get back, get a few hours sleep, and you'll be back very early in the morning to pick up with leading ABC's news coverage of Operation Desert Storm. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be going to Saudi Arabia to Nightline correspondent Forrest Sawyer, who is standing by to bring us up to date on what the operation looks like from there.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Lexus.
No one can guarantee you a perfect world. A world where the unexpected never intrudes. But some of us know we'll be taken care of, quickly and compassionately. In an imperfect world, you're in good hands with Allstate, a member of the Sears Financial Network.
Foreign substances are being introduced into your body on a daily basis. Over time, they can hurt your health. In the wrong amounts, they can increase your risk of heart disease. But you do have choices, and one is to change the way you eat. To learn how a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet can help you, contact the American Heart Association. Your life is in your hands.
People have been calling the weekday brunch bar Bob's fast food. Well, just because it's a quick lunch, don't make it fast food. Scoot over, will you? For one thing, you eat fast food with plastic, not this. And check this out. Excuse me, you using this? Real fast food comes in a box. Any clown knows that. And I ask you, does this look like fast food to you?
The new all-you-can-eat weekday brunch bar at Bob's Big Boy. An assortment of fresh breakfast and lunch items ready when you walk in.
You're enjoying this. It couldn't be fast food.
Right now, we're all concerned with the outbreak of war in the Gulf. Monitoring the world 24 hours a day. Stay with the experience of ABC News.
ABC News coverage of the Gulf War continues. Once again from Washington, Ted Koppel.
And we are going to go straight now to Saudi Arabia, where ABC correspondent Forrest Sawyer is standing by. Forrest, I don't know if you were able to listen to the first few minutes of this program, but I've literally just come back in here. And we're hoping to get an update from Forrest Sawyer very quickly. Forrest, we see you. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you?
I can indeed, Ted.
All right, give us an update if you would. Where do things stand right now? It sounds awfully quiet.
Well, it is awfully quiet here, but that doesn't mean that the raids are not still going on. You know that they lifted off from air bases all through the region, and they could likely be continuing. It actually began, from my point of view, about 2:30 this morning, when I was wakened by the sound of a tremendous rumble. And those were the planes, a lot of them F-15s or Tornadoes that were manned by Saudi pilots and by British pilots. Those were lifting off this morning and heading on out of here. I then checked to see if there was anything going on, and not until it was actually announced did I know that that was actually what was taking place. They then fanned out, and what turns out to be a brilliantly coordinated attack. They have struck Apparently, the Scud missiles in western Iraq, which they were very concerned about striking Israel, seem to have been knocked out at this point. That seems to be the case. There was concern here that there might be some Scuds that would be launched toward us. Remember, the Scuds are those Soviet-made missiles which have been modified by the Iraqis so that they have a 500-plus mile range and could strike here at this air base some several hundred miles away from Iraq. There was concern that they had lifted off. That turns out to have been a false report. This was what was called the suppression of enemy air defense tactics. They were trying to knock out the eyes and ears of Saddam Hussein, the command and control center. They were trying to make sure that he wouldn't know what was going on in the rest of the country. They were testing the radar, jamming it, knocking it out. And so far, Ted, as you heard Peter say, we don't know of any casualties. It appears to have been a spectacular run for the Allied forces.
Has there, in fact, been any word of Iraqi planes that have taken off to engage U.S. aircraft?
I haven't heard a single thing about it, which is actually stunning. It appears that the Iraqis either have chosen not to challenge the Allied force in the air because they've got those Mirage F-1 fighters. They do have just a very few MiG-29s, which people say are comparable to our F-15. That's our best fighter. That would have been a challenge up there, the Iraqi pilots versus the ability of the American pilots. But they seem not to have done that. And there are at least some people who feel that a lot of that Air Force may have been knocked out on the ground. Certainly the Iraqis were surprised.
There is also some suggestion, Forrest, that the Iraqis may have taken those planes and put them in underground bunkers so that they can live to fight another day.
Well, there is that question. What is Saddam doing? Why has he laid back so much? Well, it could be that he is simply trying to take the Americans' best shot, that he's going to hold his forces as best he can, and then down the road, as you say, attempt to take them on in ground combat. Whether that happens or not, we're going to have to see as these days of airstrikes go on. By the way, Ted, there's going to be some, I expect, spectacular footage that will likely be released very soon. From the F-15s, there are cameras placed in the nose as they're moving in on the strike. They've been taking video. We believe that that might actually be released very soon. We're going to be watching for it. We're also going to be watching for some pool footage. By that I mean the camera crews that were out there and will all come back to us. We'll have a look at that video. If it comes back in an hour or so, we'd like to have a look at that. It'll be the planes coming back from their missions, and it should be in daylight hours as well. We're looking for that, Ted, and we'll see what we come to.
All right, Forrest, stand by if you would. We're going to come back to you in a few minutes, but for the moment we want to go to our White House correspondent, Britt Hume, who is standing by, and our Pentagon correspondent, Bob Zelnick. Britt, first you. Anything new from the White House? When did the president go to bed, or is he staying up tonight, or do we even know?
Well, he's been in the family quarters for some time now, Ted, and with his overnight guest, Dr. Billy Graham, his friend and we're told longtime spiritual advisor. How late the president was going to stay up tonight was a question. He went to bed early last night, as you know. But we don't know for sure whether he's gone to sleep now or not. He was continuing to receive updated reports from General Scowcroft and others here at the White House. The last announcement that came from here, which I've not had a chance to report to you, is that the president signed an order today to open up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and sales of oil from that will begin tomorrow. This in concert with other countries participating in the International Energy Agency, and the whole idea is a psychological move to try to offset a surge in oil prices caused by this conflict.
There are, curiously enough, I was hearing again, and I've been getting the information the way that most Americans have been getting it, and that is a snippet from radio here, a snippet from television there, but apparently the Asian stock markets have opened, and whereas initially the Tokyo stock market plunged, apparently it has recovered and has even gained, and the same is true in Hong Kong and I believe in a couple of other Asian markets. But do we know yet what's happening with oil prices?
I don't have any word on that, Ted, and obviously this whole question of energy policy and whether this is a war for oil is one that's going to be argued for some time. The president's move in opening the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is obviously an effort to counter some tremendous surge caused by the psychology of the situation. Of course, it isn't going to necessarily do that if there's some major disruption of actual oil supplies. Of course, that hasn't happened in this conflict at all, or in this whole crisis, as you know, but it's still, there has been a boost in oil prices.
John McWethy is standing by at the State Department, but before we leave Britt Hume, I just want to know, this may seem like a strange thing to ask, Britt, but I would have a sense that the president is probably enormously relieved after 5.5 months of wondering whether, if, when, at least the decision has now been taken. Any suggestion of how he's been reacting this evening?
Ted, I think that's a good question, in fact, and I think that the decision, while they put out a lot of explanation today about how the process worked, the purpose of which was to make it appear, at least, that technically the decision to go was made today. In fact, it was abundantly clear from the way this whole operation was carried out and from other things that we know that the decision in principle to do this, and indeed the selection of the date, was carried out days ago, if not even longer. And the president, while he was very tense up to and through the period of the Baker Aziz meeting last week, seems like last month, has been more relaxed and seemingly increasingly so in recent days. And the sense I have is, and indeed someone who spoke to him in recent days on a private phone conversation said that the president seemed to snap out of that and relax once the decision to go had been made and it was clear that there was not going to be any reprieve from Saddam Hussein changing his mind at the last minute. So, yes, there's a very clear sense that the president is relieved that this decision, at least, is behind him.
All right, Brett, thank you. Now, John McWethy is standing by at the State Department. John, I'm going to throw it to you the only way I know how at this point. What's new? What have you learned?
Well, first of all, as a sign of how at ease certain members of the administration are, Ted, Secretary Baker has left the State Department and has gone home and gone to bed, from all that we can tell. The Secretary began his day by calling in the Saudi ambassador first thing and telling the Saudis that the United States was going to go tonight and wanted to make sure that the Saudis were completely on board, and of course they were. They told Secretary Baker they would be when he was out in the region last week. Throughout the afternoon, Secretary Baker began notifying other countries in the coalition. To a country, of course, they are all with the United States at this point. It remains to be seen what's going to actually happen when a ground war is opened up on this particular front. Secretary Baker was upstairs in the State Department watching ABC News, oddly enough, when Gary Shepard reported from the scene that the war had in fact started. Now the Secretary is going to carry through tomorrow morning. The first thing he does, he'll be over at the White House with Brent Scowcroft, the President's National Security Advisor, and Secretary of Defense Cheney. The three of them will have breakfast, and then they'll all go and talk to the President. So,
John, I don't want to blindside you, but I heard a rumor as I was coming in, a report that the Turkish Parliament may be convening within a matter of hours and that they are intending a declaration of war against Iraq. Do you know anything about that?
I have also heard that, Ted, and in fact it does not come as a great surprise. When I was in Turkey with Secretary Baker just a couple of days ago, there were all sorts of rumors circulating around Ankara about what the role of the Turks would be in all of this. They were very careful to say in public at that point that there would be no offensive operations from Turkish air bases, but privately American officials said they anticipated that American aircraft would be flying bombing missions from that country at some point during the war. It appears that Turgut Özal, the president of Turkey, is now trying to position his country to do just that.
Now, that's where the F-111 fighter bombers are based,
Well,
right?
there are some F-111s there. There are various other aircraft, but it's the F-111s in particular that they would like to fly there. There are lots of F-111s in Saudi Arabia, not just in Turkey.
All right, John McWethy, thank you very much. And now to the Pentagon and Bob Zelnick. Bob, what is the latest news? And I suppose we should pick up with the issue that is of most concern to most Americans right now, and that is the welfare of those pilots who engaged in those missions earlier on tonight.
On that subject, Ted, the news is good but not precise. Everyone that we've talked to, including senior military officials within the past half hour, say the results appear to be very, very good. But because the information is not complete, they're not giving precise figures on the number of planes, if any, that were lost, or the number of human casualties on the American side. On the other hand, we are getting a good deal of information now about the raid itself, the targets that were selected, and the results of the raids. Let me go over some of the targets with you. One big category were the Scud missiles. The senior figure with whom we spoke said that these are very small targets in terms of their size, and it won't really be until we've had a chance to oversee this area in daylight that we know precisely how many were hit and how many were destroyed. But the initial results appear to be good for the simple reason that there's still, at this point, no instance of a confirmed Scud launching by the Iraqis.
Bob, let me just interrupt you for 1 second so that you can also explain what is so terribly important about those Scud missiles. Those are the ones that presumably could be used or would be used against Israel. And, of course, the question of whether Israel is going to become involved in combat here is a terribly delicate one in terms of diplomatic and political terms.
No question about that, Ted. They were particularly the ones located in western Iraq. But I think it's also fair to say, and I don't want to sound cold-blooded when I'm discussing this, but that the question of whether Israel was attacked and got into the war was more important from a political viewpoint before the United States and its Arab allies started fighting. Everything that I picked up in talking to U.S. strategists, both military and civilian, the past couple of weeks indicated that the greatest political danger was if it started out as an Arab-Israeli war and the support fell out of the Arab coalition backing the United States. Now that they have in fact joined the fighting, it's less of a political danger, although of course no one would want to see Israel get hit with Scuds. Now, there's a third category of targets and also a quite important one, and these are the air facilities and other permanent big structures inside Iraq, chemical warfare and potential nuclear weapons facilities, biological facilities, and in the words of one very senior official here, we hit the big things pretty good. They used an awful lot of cruise missiles, 100 or more. They were armed with area cluster devices which tore up big stationary targets like tarmacs, buildings, etc. And they're very confident that not only the airport facilities and chemical facilities, but also any aircraft which were not in hangars are in a pretty bad state right now. Another category of targets, and this is, you'll appreciate, a very, very important one. These are the elite Republican Guard units. Now, there have been some extravagant claims made throughout the course of the evening over how we decimated the Republican Guards. Let me say this. I am told on good authority that we did employ B-52s against the Republican Guards, even on this, the first night of the war. But in terms of damage assessment, we're really not going to get a handle on that until we listen to some things and look at some things in the daylight. And the best information we have is that even if this were an unqualified success, these are big, tough, well-entrenched units, and it's far from decisive after the first day of battle. Again, in the words of a senior official, this is an ongoing operation. We've stopped to refuel, basically, and debrief ourselves. We're going to send up some spy aircraft and, of course, the spy satellites in daylight and get a better handle on what we did.
All right, Bob Zelnick, thank you very much. I have a number of other questions I'd like to pose to you, but we may come to you a little bit later on if you'd be good enough to stand by. We're going to take a short break.
Okay, you're trying to decide between the Jeep Cherokee and the Isuzu Trooper. Let's weigh the facts, shall we? The Isuzu Trooper comes standard with four-wheel disc brakes and triple skid plates, more cargo space, a larger fuel tank, and more headroom. Oh, and one more thing. The Isuzu Trooper costs about $1,000 less.
The Isuzu Trooper, at just $13,699. There's no comparison.
Did you know it's tough getting business people to agree on what's best? Yet business people do agree. Nobody beats AT&T when it comes to long-distance service. In an independent poll where users rated their carriers, AT&T was unsurpassed in the best technology and best service categories and was voted #1 in overall satisfaction. So now that we've agreed on AT&T, it's back to business as usual. Quality, another AT&T advantage.
Nice clean shirt, right? Not for long. Bring on the dogs. Wet ones, muddy ones, smelly ones. Oof. Time for a high-priced detergent, right? Wrong. Dash has the power to clean a tough mess like this at a price that's easy to take. See? Dash did it. Dash cleans a smelly mess for less.
on, you gotta see this.
It's flour. And where did all this strum and light come from? Light, light, light. Look at this.
Something's funny. Did you see that?
See what?
Neither did I.
I'm so proud of my new Stoneman light bread. I make sure the goodness is baked in.
I am holding something green and powerful, and it's going to change your weekend.
What, lawn clippers?
I'm picking you up at 4 o'clock.
So where are you taking me?
Reservation for the Newtons?
Yes, ma'am. What else have you got planned?
The whole weekend.
Only one card gives you the privileges of membership. The American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
Right now, we're all concerned with the outbreak of war in the Gulf. Monitoring the world 24 hours a day. Stay with the experience of ABC News.
ABC News coverage of the Gulf War continues. Once again from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Operation Desert Storm is now 5 hours old, and it has been an eventful 5 hours. We thought it would be useful to take a look at some of the highlights since the operation began. Here's Nightline correspondent James Walker.
18 and a half hours after the deadline expires for Iraq to leave Kuwait, ABC News correspondent Bill Redeker, reporting live on World News Tonight from eastern Saudi Arabia, gives an early indication that the war is about to begin.
During the past half hour, we have counted about 20 fighter jet aircraft takeoffs. Normally, there is some air activity at night, but it's normally transport and a few air missions.
At 6:39 p.m., Peter Jennings interrupts World News Tonight.
We're going to dump out of that piece by Gary Shepard at the moment and go back to him live on the telephone, for he has an up-to-date report. Gary.
Throughout the entire sky, there are flashes of light. Something is definitely underway here.
26 minutes later, the Associated Press carries word from the U.S. Air Force that the attack is underway. A short time after that, White House Press Secretary Marlin Fitzwater reads a statement from President Bush.
The liberation of Kuwait has begun. In conjunction with the forces of our coalition partners, the United States has moved under the code name Operation Desert Storm to enforce the mandates of the United Nations Security Council.
From Jerusalem, ABC News correspondent Dean Reynolds describes initial Israeli reaction to the attack.
Citizens of Israel are asked to open their gas mask kits and to stay at home and to keep the kits with them at all times.
At an airbase in eastern Saudi Arabia, a major target for Iraqi missiles, Bill Redeker reports.
People are putting on gas masks and being ordered out.
Bill, it's your call, whatever you want to do anytime. Do you want to stay or do you want to go?
In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, U.S. headquarters for Operation Desert Storm, Barry Dunsmore faces a similar experience.
The air raid sirens here in Riyadh have begun to go off again. And as I indicated earlier, the instructions we have had are to get into our suits.
At 9:01 p.m., 2 hours after the U.S. attack began, President Bush goes before the nation, saying the military operation is proceeding as planned.
As I report to you, air attacks are underway against military targets in Iraq. We are determined to knock out Saddam Hussein's nuclear bomb potential. We will also destroy his chemical weapons facilities. Much of Saddam's artillery and tanks will be destroyed.
The president repeats his pledge that the war against Iraq will be confined.
Our troops will have the best possible support in the entire world, and they will not be asked to fight with one hand tied behind their back. I'm hopeful that this fighting will not go on for long, and that casualties will be held to an absolute minimum.
At 9:30 tonight, Defense Secretary Dick Cheney and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Colin Powell, reveal few details about the operation.
The operation underway tonight, taking place in the pre-dawn darkness of the Persian Gulf, involves allied air forces of 4 nations: the United States, the United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait.
Well, the operation's only 2.5 hours old, so I'm not quite prepared to take on your second question. So far, there has been no air resistance.
the preliminary reports we have received in terms of the success of the operation, and that includes the possibility of casualties, have been very, very encouraging. The operation appears to have gone very well.
So tonight, having launched Operation Desert Storm, President Bush now faces the difficult challenge of completing the war quickly and with minimal casualties. This is James Walker for Nightline.
So there it is, rather flimsy information as of this hour, but what information there is sounds very good for the Allied forces. Bob Zelnick, our Pentagon correspondent, is still standing by. For weeks prior to this day, Bob, you're there, okay. For weeks prior to this day, the United States has been trying to convince Saddam Hussein that he truly does not understand the technical capability of late 20th century weaponry and of the electronic capability and the enormous destructive power. I'd like you just to take a couple of minutes, if you would, to go into some of those weapon systems. You spoke before the commercial break about cruise missiles that were sent in initially. Give us a sense of what the difference is between these weapon systems and the kind of accuracy and the kind of destructive power that they have compared to, for example, the kind of weapons that we used during Vietnam.
Well, let me give you an example of the cruise missile, and the Navy's going to love me for this because it's one of their favorite ways of explaining it. They say that they could fire one of these Tomahawk cruise missiles off in Boston Harbor and send it through the goalposts at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C., and have a better field goal percentage than Chip Lohmiller, who's an outstanding kicker for the Washington Redskins. These things have become so computerized, so sophisticated, that given a fixed target and the ability to program for it, whether it's a cruise missile or just a dumb bomb, a so-called dumb bomb that can be laser guided to its target, they have enormously greater destructive capability because they hit so close to what they're aiming for. Now, there are all kinds of complications, and Vietnam was the absolute worst case because you did not have a conventional force against you. You had a guerrilla force. You did not have a force with big tanks and big airports and other facilities that you could program. You had a bunch of guys wearing black pajamas winding down the Ho Chi Minh Trail with 30 days supply of food in a sock or something, and ammunition that could ambush and pick off Marines or Army men at the time and place of their choosing. So the Air Force and the others who were using the weapons then feel that was the worst case basis, and they have not been looking for another war, but they have been looking for something which could really demonstrate the fact that technology does count, that these things do matter, that the money that we've spent on these sophisticated systems is not in vain. Ted, you remember when we were talking last night, the single example of a bomb. Back in World War II, it had a probability of, you took a radius of about 3,000 feet and just drew it all around. And if you dropped a bomb, you had, most of the time you're going to come within that 3,000-foot circle. And today, it's 5 to 10 feet. And that makes a bomb today thousands and thousands of times more destructive when it's dropped, because it's that much more accurate.
Stay there, Bob, because I'm going to come back to you. But also joining us now is a consultant to ABC News, Tony Cordesman, who is a specialist on a number of these weapons systems. And Tony, I'd like you to pick up where Bob left off. We have been speaking throughout the evening of the importance of knocking out command and control. Explain to us laymen what command and control is and the impact of knocking it out.
Basically speaking, what you're doing is knocking out the brain and the nervous system. Largely what you're doing is knocking out the nervous system. It doesn't matter if the commanders can survive in underground shelters if they can't communicate. It doesn't matter if the aircraft or the missiles survive if they're blind. They've lost the radars, if they've lost the command and control links necessary to give them vectors against our aircraft. Once we knock out that command and control structure, even if we do it partially, we cut their effectiveness by perhaps 50%, perhaps even more.
Is it your impression that we have been successful in that regard, Tony, that the U.S. Air Force and aircraft from the 3 other allied nations who were involved today, that they've been effective in knocking them out? And indeed, as I ask that question, I'm making a certain assumption. Would the air forces or would the planes from the other nations have been involved in those targets, or is that something that the U.S. Air Force would have kept to itself?
Well, 2 points. One, I think we have to be very careful this evening about not going from success to euphoria. There are hundreds of sheltered targets, many of them very important in Iraq and Kuwait. The most effective strikes have limits to them. Hundreds of sorties do not destroy the entire military machine or even the command and control net in one night. They may suppress most of the air bases. They don't suppress everything. Some Scuds will survive. This is a military machine of 1 million men, 700 aircraft, of more than 5,000 tanks. Everything we've heard to date, though, indicates that the beginning of a campaign of several days has been remarkably successful. And so if we can keep this in perspective, it would seem that we have begun to destroy Iraq's ability to fight an air war and a missile war with what seems to be great success, and simultaneously hit at the core of the strike power in their armored and mechanized forces.
All right. I don't want to throw a curve to our director, but we're going to have to take a short break because we're having some command and control problems of our own. I'm having a little difficulty hearing them. So we'll go away for a short message, and then we will be back with more, and we will go back to Saudi Arabia and talk with some of our specialists here in Washington. Back in a moment.
Three reminders from a leader in four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive technology. 1. Don't try this without the advantage of four-wheel drive. 2. Don't try this without the advantage of all-wheel drive. And 3. Don't try 1 or 2 without the advantage of Jeep or Eagle.
LensCrafters made me these wonderful top-quality glasses and got me back on track in about an hour.
LensCrafters puts the whole lab right in the store to custom craft your top-quality glasses in about an hour. Call LensCrafters at 1-800-522-LENS.
Yeah, I'll call you back.
When the diagnosis is minor sore throat pain, the physician's desk reference lists maximum strength Sucrets for soothing anesthetic relief.
Feels better.
Sucrets, soothing medicine for sore throat pain.
This is an Action News special report. War with Iraq.
Hello, I'm Jim Gardner. The major event that is still happening in Philadelphia tonight in connection with the war in Iraq is a major anti-war protest going on now at Independence Mall. Let's bring in John Rollins, who is live at the scene. John, can you bring us up to date?
Well, Jim, we've gotten quite a bit of exercise. We've walked all the way from here at 5th and Independence Mall, all the way up to City Hall and back. The group has just returned. They're doing, it's sort of a quiet phase right now. They're going through some speeches. That's about it. We should put this all in context. In a city of about 4 million people, there's probably about 300 protesters here. That is a large protest group for sure, but it is by no means a groundswell. So that's the situation right now. I'm John Rollins, live on the Action Cam.
Thank you, John. And another reminder, Action News will be here all night and throughout tomorrow to bring you live updates on what's going on in our area. Now back to the network.
General Bernard Traynor is a retired Marine Corps general who has some background in the fighting capability of the Iraqi forces. Fill us in on your own background for a moment, if you would, General, and then pick up for me on what you think this evening's event so far, from what we've been able to glean, reflects of what lies ahead.
All right, Ted, I retired from the Marine Corps in 1985 and then became the military correspondent for the New York Times, and in the course of my assignment with the Times, I covered the latter stages of the Iran-Iraq war, the last of the Iranian offensive. So I got a pretty good look at the Iraqi armed forces. And tonight's operation, and I agree with Tony, we don't have all the information in yet, but it certainly appears to be a spectacular success, and it's very difficult to suppress a great deal of elation. If this thing was as effective as it appears to be, at least at this point with the preliminary reports, I can only think of one other air campaign that even matches it, except it would be on a much smaller scale, and that was the very successful Israeli air attack against the Syrian Air Force and the Syrian air defense positions in the Bekaa Valley during their Lebanon campaign in 1982, where they literally wiped out the air capabilities of the Syrians. And this could be bordering on something very similar.
Give us a little look into the future, though, if you can. When I say the future, I mean tomorrow, the day after. What fighting capability should we be alerted to with regard to the Iraqi forces, both on the ground and in the air?
Well, if this was as successful as it appears, we have literally defanged their offensive capability in terms of air and in terms of their missile capability. So therefore, we have taken out that offensive capability. We probably have also, if we haven't completely taken it out, we have severely damaged their high altitude and intermediate altitude anti-aircraft defenses, which are basically missiles which are controlled by radars and electronics. What we probably have not taken out, although perhaps damaged, and probably never will take out completely, is their low-level anti-aircraft capability. By that I mean anything below 10,000 feet. These are the conventional type anti-aircraft weapons, machine guns, shoulder-held weapons. He still has this capability. He has a large inventory of these weapons, and these weapons will give our pilots, whether they're in fixed-wing aircraft or in helicopters, they're going to give them trouble.
Well, we heard from Gary Shepard, who was reporting earlier this evening from Baghdad, that he could see tracers literally seeming to go straight up into the sky, and I wonder what the possible effectiveness could be of men who are shooting into a night sky at aircraft that they presumably cannot see. I mean, first of all, they're coming in very fast, and how close to the deck would they be coming in?
Well, they could be coming in as low as 50 feet to the deck. But their technique is to not to try to follow an airplane and shoot at the airplane. You described it aptly when you said that they just fire in the sky. What they try to do is set up a zone of fire and let the airplane literally fly into it and destroy itself by running into that fire. Now, in terms of the sort of attack that was launched in the Baghdad area, this probably had only limited effectiveness. But where it would be effective is when we send the aircraft against their infantry and their artillery and their tanks, and we do it particularly in daylight. This battle is not yet over, and it certainly is not going to be cost-free. And I would say that their low-level air defenses are still going to take a toll on American aircraft.
Let me bring in another specialist, a retired Air Force colleague of yours, General Russell Doherty, retired former commander of the Strategic Air Command. Without taking any joy in the loss of life today, and that clearly is not something that you as a former military man would do, you must be awfully pleased of your Air Force.
Ted, I want to echo the admonition against euphoria. But what I'm proud of is that we have done it right, at least at the outset. I hope we don't stop. I hope we can continue. We've demonstrated the real capability of some weapons that a lot of us have been working on for decades, something we've never done before. We've also given a demonstration to the world of how good those things can be if they're done and laid on in a very cohesive way, if we've correlated our weapons and we've correlated our different forces.
General Doherty, let me interrupt you because you're talking about things with which you are intimately familiar and the rest of us are not. So without breaching any security, tell us which kinds of weapon systems you're talking about and what their capability is and how they are used in coordination and conjunction with one another.
I'll be glad to. Bob and Tony touched on some of them. One is the near-zero CEP of the avionics of our cruise missiles, the avionics of our aircraft. We saw the F-15G utilized in combat.
Now, I was hoping you were going to say yourself what you're talking about. The CEP, you're talking about the degree of accuracy.
The circular era probable, the radius into which at least half of the weapons will come. Tony was right, and Bob, we used to talk about a circular era probable in thousands of feet. Now we talk about it in tens of feet. It amplifies your firepower. It makes it far more effective. Our jamming techniques, our electronic countermeasures, all of those things seemingly were used quite properly. This was done right.
What kind of order would the weapons be used in? We had heard prior to the beginning of Operation Desert Storm that probably the cruise missiles would be used first. I think that appears to be what happened. Explain to us why and what the capability of these cruise missiles is.
I don't know in what order they were used, Ted, and I'll be very anxious to find out, as will we all, because I have no planning knowledge of what actually took place. But I think when they early reported the attacks on Baghdad, we were probably seeing cruise missiles employed there. Then later, in the midst of the chaos and the confusion, then they brought in some F-15Es.
Before you get to the F-15Es, again, I don't want you to assume, and I'm not going to assume, that everyone who's watching knows what a cruise missile does and in what areas it differs from a conventional manned aircraft. Would you explain it to us, please?
Well, the cruise missile is not manned. It is an unmanned aircraft, flying at very low level, flying on a predetermined taped course based upon guidance put into its computer tape. It constantly corrects itself in course based upon known points on the ground, and its accuracy gets better and better as it gets closer to the target. That's why, jokingly, they said they could outpunt Lohmiller from the Boston Naval Yard. But the cruise missile is a subsonic, long-range missile without man, only with warhead and with fuel and engine, and very, very dangerous and very hazardous weapon.
All right, give us a quick wrap-up then, if you would, General Doherty, on what you think has been accomplished today, and when I ask what you think has been accomplished today, just what may be left.
I think the real thing we've accomplished, Ted, is we have shown Saddam Hussein what modern air power can do. He has been in an air war, but it was just peanuts compared to what he saw tonight. The Iran-Iraq war was nothing but maybe a limited ground support, some airlift, some reconnaissance. It wasn't really an air war. He saw for the first time what an air war can do if it's properly laid on. And so did some of us, I might add, because this is one of the first times I know we've really done it right.
Tony Cordesman, let me quickly ask you a political question. Would it make sense then, I don't know whether it would come today, tomorrow, the next day, for there to be, let's say, a 24-hour pause during which time some diplomatic initiative was allowed to take hold? In other words, we've shown you what you can do. If you don't want more of it, let's talk.
The time may come for a pause, but I think only after the bulk of his armored and mechanized forces are destroyed, only after we have rooted out the bulk of his chemical weapons stocks, many of which remain, only after we have created a situation where he cannot emerge from this conflict, as perhaps Egypt did in 1967, in 1973, with any hope of convincing anyone he is still a major military power, and only when it is quite clear we have the unity to deny him resupplies of arms in the future.
All right, gentlemen, I thank you all very much. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to get some domestic reaction. All of that in a moment.
What pain reliever do doctors recommend most for minor arthritis pain, backaches, sprains and strains, and menstrual pain? Advil. What pain reliever do doctors trust so much they recommended it over 50 million times in just 6 years? Advil. And what pain reliever is so effective that one tablet relieves headache pain as well as 2 regular strength Tylenol? Advil. Gentler to your stomach than aspirin, safe, trusted, doctor recommended. Advil. Advanced medicine for pain.
Here's a question. How can you save 12% of your gasoline bill every year? Have a regular tune-up. Let's put our energy into saving it.
This toothpaste will blow you away. Wow. With a breath freshener that's a brush of fresh air. Wow. It's Aquafresh Extra Fresh with a breath freshener that beats the leading brand. Aquafresh Extra Fresh. It's a brush of fresh air.
We have our own satellite requirements, so we're going to juggle things around a little bit. I said we were going to have domestic reaction. Indeed, we will. But first, because we're going to lose our satellite to Jerusalem, I want to go to Israel and to our correspondent there, our bureau chief, Dean Reynolds. Dean, I would assume, I was in Israel a couple of days ago, from talking to people there, they were, on the one hand, apprehensive, but they were apprehensive not that the war wouldn't begin, but rather, or that the war would begin, but rather that the war would not begin, and that it might be left to them. What is the reaction there? It's now, what, 8:20 in the morning?
That's right, Ted. There is enormous appreciation here among Israelis for what the American Air Force has accomplished. They believe that the Iraqi missile bases in western Iraq that had threatened Israel with Scud missiles have been effectively destroyed. There is still the possibility that one or two of the missiles is still intact, and so while there is relief, it is not complete and total relaxation. The Israelis, of course, always wanted to concentrate on the Iraqi firepower and not really so much on getting Saddam out of Kuwait. They were more interested in the infrastructure, the chemical, biological, and potentially nuclear weapons that Saddam had or was amassing in Iraq. And the American assault overnight appears to be designed to get right at that infrastructure. So the Israelis are, as I say, relieved, not totally relaxed.
I don't know to what degree, Dean, they are briefing there at high government levels, but our great concern, when I say our, I mean the U.S. government's great concern, has actually been that the Israelis might become involved, and if they become involved, that the coalition, particularly the alliances with some of the Arab states, who are on the same side as the United States, that alliance would be threatened. Is there sufficient sense of security in Israel now that you think the Israelis will stay out of it?
I think so, Ted. There is no state of emergency even declared this morning, although most Israelis are staying indoors and heeding the warnings of the military to stay indoors, to have opened their gas masks by now, and to at least have them at hand, again, because of the abundance of caution that I was talking about, that there might be an Iraqi missile that could still be launched at them. But essentially, the Israelis feel pretty good about what has happened this morning.
We went back and forth a couple of times while we were there earlier in the week between Israel and Jordan. Both states had their military at the highest level of alert. Does this mean that the Jordanians at least can relax a little?
I think so, in an ironic way, yes. As long as the Israelis see no need to overfly Jordan to get at these missile bases or at any other targets in Iraq, I think the Jordanians may be relaxing as well. The Israelis and the Jordanians had actually communicated directly, I was told, although not at the political level, trying to assuage each other's fears in the last few days, trying to essentially say, look, we don't have any intention to attack you or to invade you, especially from the Israeli point of view. And I think today in Amman, they should be reasonably happy, as happy as they can be about what has happened, but at least that the Israelis will not be violating their airspace.
All right, Dean Reynolds, thank you very much. I want to get another perspective now from our chief foreign correspondent, Pierre Salinger, who's standing by in London. The Europeans in particular, Pierre, have not been eager for this day to come. Or at least, if one judges by their public statements, they have not been eager. Now that it has come, now that it has happened, how are they responding?
Well, Ted, the only actual government response up to now is a statement by Chancellor Helmut Kohl of Germany, who said that he was concerned about the fact that the war had broken out, that obviously Germany would give its support to the most it could, but he hoped that the war would come to a rapid end. The French government has been under pressure to say something, but they have not said anything except the fact that they're ready to deploy their planes, which are in the Gulf region, and participate with the other aircraft in what is going on. Perhaps one of the most important things that has been going on for the last 2.5 hours has been a meeting of NATO. All the ambassadors of NATO were called in about 2 hours ago by General Manfred Werner, and they have just ended that meeting with two things that came out of it. Number one, the U.S. ambassador, William Taft, announced that if Iraq would start to pull out from Kuwait now, the United States would stop the destruction of Iraq. The second point that was made was a resolution adopted by NATO that any Iraqi attack on Turkey would be considered an attack on NATO. Now, the Turkish parliament is about to be convened in the next couple of hours to adopt a law to allow cross-border fighting if it is needed, and also to allow U.S. aircraft, there are about 50 U.S. aircraft stationed at an air base in Turkey, to go across the border if needed. That has not yet been adopted, but the meeting is coming up in a couple of hours.
Here, let me stop you for a moment. It's one of those phrases that sort of goes in one ear and out the other, cross-border fighting, and then you reflect on it. What does that mean? It sounds like an invasion, or the possibility of an invasion from Turkey into Iraq.
Well, up to now, all the forces that Turkey has assembled on the border, and they're quite substantial, have been for defensive reasons. And the planes that were taken into Turkey, both the U.S. planes and NATO planes, which included some German aircraft, were also put in there for defensive reasons. But obviously, in adopting this law, they are putting themselves in a situation where if they believe that it is becoming a threat to them, then they can cross across the border and attack Iraq.
Is it your impression, and I understand the Parliament has not yet met, that that will be passed?
It is my impression that it will be passed. President Ozal, the Prime Minister, have all spoken out in favor of it, and I don't see any way that it will not be passed by that Parliament fairly rapidly.
All right. Pierre Salinger, Dean Reynolds, thank you both very much. We are going to phase out of Nightline at this point, take a short break, allow your stations to identify themselves, but we will be back immediately after the half hour and continue on in a special reports mode. I'll be back in a moment.
This has been ABC News Nightline.
The Maytag refrigerator has doors built to last longer, shelves built to last longer, and drawers built to last longer. And it comes with a guarantee to the year 2000, but only for a little longer. So see your Maytag dealer soon for the refrigerator guaranteed to keep him lonely longer.
No one can guarantee you a perfect world. A world where the unexpected never intrudes. But some of us know we'll be taken care of quickly and compassionately. In an imperfect world, you're in good hands with Allstate, a member of the Sears Financial Network.
This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
And we are back once again, now 4.5, 5.5 hours into Operation Desert Storm. And it has been, by all accounts, a very effective operation. And by all accounts, the aircraft which went over both Iraq and Kuwait and launched their missions have returned safely. But it is perhaps too early to say that with any certainty, rather. What we want to do right now is, and you understand the way that things are being covered in Saudi Arabia right now, you are looking at pool video, obviously taken during the night, and it was during the night that all these Air Force missions and other missions against Iraq and Kuwait were launched. You are looking at pool video now of some of the U.S. pilots as they were preparing themselves at a base on the Persian Gulf, and we don't know where that base is, to launch their missions against Iraq. We are looking at this video for the first time as you are, and it is more or less self-explanatory. I do have one of our military analysts, Tony Cordesman, standing by. Tony, what I'd like to do is just let the video play a little bit, and as you see aircraft, for example, that you recognize, or any comment that you would like to make, please do.
Well, Ted, we're obviously watching one thing that's very clear, and that's preparation for a major night attack. I think what we have seen is an F-15. If it's the base I think it is, this is the same base that included the British Tornadoes, the Saudi Tornadoes. For as far as we know, the F-117 stealth fighter was based elsewhere. But all of this is getting ready, I would assume, for the events that took place and that began the war this evening and the attack that proved so successful.
Tony, do you want to comment on the fact, and that does look like an F-15, you want to comment on the fact that bombs loaded under the wings?
Well, you know, it is amazing that one of these fighter planes can carry more than a World War II bomber. They're not trucks. These are incredibly maneuverable aircraft. But the strike power of this, it can deliver with precision on the order of perhaps sometimes 10 meters. And it can deliver, say, 4 2,000-pound bombs. That's 4 strikes per plane. Some of these aircraft are equipped with lantern. That's an incredibly sophisticated infrared system matched to the radar in the aircraft that allows it to look during the night at the ground as if it was daylight. In some ways, better than daylight because it picks up targets in different ways. You are watching the equivalent of what was a bomber squadron.
Tony, let me interrupt you for one moment. Barry Dunsmore is standing by in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia by phone. He has seen some of this video and has some information on it. Barry, can you hear me?
Yes, Ted. It's my understanding that these are F-15s, so-called Strike Eagles, and they are at the largest U.S. air base in Saudi Arabia, and they were part of the initial attack into Iraq. Among other things, each plane is equipped with a dozen half-ton cluster bombs and 4 air-to-air heat-seeking missiles. This is the newest version of the F-15.
I think, Barry, if I could...
also particularly equipped with an infrared night vision system.
You were just talking about a heat-seeking missile, Barry. I think we're looking at one just now. You can see it right under the wing there. Tony Cordesman, am I right?
I think what you're watching is a large fuel tank.
No, I was talking about that missile that was just under the wing. Now, of course, we just have a couple of guys...
Okay, that would have been an AIM-9M or its equivalent. Again, a system somewhat similar to the ones we had in Vietnam, but perhaps 20 or 30 times more lethal than air-to-air combat.
Now, we should tell you again, this is pool video that's just coming in, and it's been fed raw from Saudi Arabia here to the United States. When I say pool video, what I mean is that the military permits a camera crew on scene. That camera crew services all the networks. This video is available to all the news organizations that need it. And Barry, I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, basically, I think I've given you most of the material that we have on this pool. As I said, I think this is one of the units that was expected to have led the nighttime attack. And the planes, I understand, are from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina. And they took off at around 12:45 Saudi time. That's 8 hours ahead of Washington time.
What is, of course, going to be fascinating, Barry, is if and when we get access to the video that was shot by these aircraft as they were engaged in their combat missions. Do you have any idea?
Indeed, and I understand that will ultimately be made available in Tehran.
But not for a while.
Well, I would imagine that the commanders are going to want to take a look at it first to see what indeed they have accomplished.
Go ahead, Tony. You wanted to jump in?
I think one important thing, remember, we're not going to see photographs in the normal sense. These aircraft, we're going to see copies of the radar sensors in the infrared. They're very difficult to interpret, and the ordinary person just seeing them, Ted, on television would be confronted with something that would be absolutely incomprehensible.
Well, that's why we have folks like you around, so you'll be able to interpret it for us. You know what strikes me as we look at these pictures, Tony, is how calm everything seems. I mean, I sort of had a mental image of one jet after another peeling off the runway and into the sky. And this just looks like a very quiet operation. It looks more or less the way you would expect to see things at O'Hare or Kennedy or any one of our large commercial airports.
Ted, let me make a guess. If I was allowing these photographs to be taken and released, I wouldn't be showing all the aircraft taking off in a line. I wouldn't give anyone photos that showed how many Allied, Saudi, and British aircraft were taking off at the same time. You don't want to give any information away that really shows some of the excitement or what in many ways has been the incredible shock power of an air offensive which, after all, isn't just American. It is Saudi and British, also Kuwaiti as well.
Let me just insert something here as we continue to watch this pool video from Saudi Arabia of some of the F-15s that took off earlier this evening on their bombing raids against both Iraq and Kuwait. CNN is reporting from Baghdad that Iraqi TV plans very shortly to air a message from Saddam Hussein. Now, I have absolutely no idea what's going to be in that message, except that some messages have already been broadcast on Iraqi radio, and they do not sound particularly encouraging. Let me just put my glasses on here for a second, and I will read you what I have. The 17th of January, the hypocrites struck, Saddam said in a Baghdad radio message, monitored in Nicosia. The great showdown has begun. Saddam, addressing the glorious, and this is a quote, the glorious sons of our nation, said the battle was one of justice against vice, of the believers against the infidels. With the perseverance of the believers, the dawn of victory nears as this great showdown begins. That hardly sounds like the language of a man who is about to say, I've heard you and I'm ready to talk. But again, some of these messages may indeed have been pre-recorded. That is the way things are frequently done in the Arab world. And when I say pre-recorded, I don't even mean by Saddam Hussein himself. Probably a lot of messages were given out to the radio stations. They have announcers there. You have heard and seen them, and that's the end of that video from Saudi Arabia. You've heard and seen some of these Iraqi announcers who come on and read entire speeches in Saddam's name. It is very likely that some of those messages were indeed pre-positioned with Iraqi radio with instructions that as soon as any attack begins, they are to read those messages on the air. But what we have now, again reported by CNN from Baghdad, is that Saddam Hussein himself plans to broadcast a message. We'll just have to hang in there and wait to see what comes from that. Now, again, folks, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing some of the instructions that I'm supposed to be getting, so we will take a short break, we will regroup, and then we will come back with what I promised you a little bit earlier, and that is some reaction from the home front.
Unfortunately, the Wagner's new vacuum cleaner was not the most trouble-free in its class. Neither was the new refrigerator, nor the new lawnmower they got such a good deal on. Thank goodness they made one new purchase that was the most trouble-free in its class, 2 years running, the Toyota Corolla.
Maybe you ought to just let that lawn die out.
I know what you do for me, Toyota.
It's Red Lobster's 19 shrimp and steak special. Sizzling scampi, fried shrimp, plus a juicy steak. 19 shrimp and steak, just $9.99. Hurry to Red Lobster.
I'll put you next to Ted.
Now, when life turns up the heat, there's Degree antiperspirant. Every time your body heat rises, Degree turns on extra protection. Degree, your body heat turns it on. Don't
Don't you wish you'd bought the video cassette of Lady and the Tramp when you had the chance? Now it's gone, and time is running out to add Cinderella to your collection. But you still have a chance to own 2 of Disney's most delightful animated classics, the magical Peter Pan and the Academy Award-winning The Little Mermaid. Still available, but only for a limited time. Don't let Peter Pan and The Little Mermaid get away.
Introducing Glade Plug-ins Air Freshener. It keeps
on freshening. And freshening.
And freshening.
Plug it in, plug it in.
New Glade Plug-ins freshens for 30 days.
Plug it in, plug it in.
Gently, constantly warms this refill cartridge for a full 30 days.
Freshens 30 days, freshens out of your way. Plug it in, plug it in.
After 30 days, just pop in a refill. Try Glade Plug-ins and plug into 30-day freshness.
Plug it in.
We are a nation that likes to take its own temperature in the wake of any important event, and certainly the events of tonight are important. We are in the midst of what is now a war with Iraq, and during the course of the past few hours, a flash ABC News Washington Post poll was taken. That was in the immediate hours after the war in the Gulf began, and it shows overwhelmingly strong support for the president's actions. Asked if they approve of the United States going to war with Iraq, 76% said yes, they approve, while 22% said they disapproved. And asked if they thought the U.S. would win the war against Iraq, Americans by an 89 to 1% margin said they thought that the United States would be victorious. We should point out that this overwhelming support is based on a quick victory with minimal U.S. casualties. And I should also point out that there is a general tendency, as has been shown throughout history, of Americans in the early days of a war to be far more supportive than they sometimes are once the casualties begin to occur and some of the wounded and even the dead begin to come back home again. But for the moment, in the early hours of this war, the president has what he needs at this time, and that is strong domestic support. We'd like now to give you some of the quick reaction that came also from Capitol Hill this evening, some of the voices from the House and Senate.
I think all of us are deeply concerned that this war now be as short as possible, that, as the President indicated, it be with the minimum loss of life and is decisive in its result.
Now it's time to get behind our President and to support the young men and women who are there. We had the proper debate. We had the vote. As divisive as that may have been, I would believe that Americans now come shoulder to shoulder in support of the President.
There comes a time when I think you must proceed, and apparently they picked the most appropriate one because of the response from Iraq. It was, we will know more about that tomorrow, and you'll know more, and I guess I won't try to be dramatic, but it was obviously the right time at the right place on a moonless night, 3 a.m. In the middle of a vulnerable time.
I think this is a very somber moment that we're all experiencing. I think this war will change the world in ways that none of us can foresee at the present time. And certainly our prayers and all of our support have to be and are with our men and women in the armed forces who have been sent into battle.
He left us no alternative. He started this war. He can end this war simply by getting out of Kuwait. Yeah, I don't know now whether it's too late or not, but we tried. The last best efforts of a lot of countries went into trying to bring about a peaceful solution of this problem, and when a man keeps saying no, it's impossible. I don't think they have any other choice.
The President called me at 6 o'clock and said within the hour, by 7 o'clock, we would attack. And I said, well, Mr. President, my Bible tells me that our Heavenly Father, who hears us in secret, will reward us openly. I'm praying for you every night.
Just a few of the voices from Capitol Hill tonight in the wake of the opening attack against Iraq. Standing by now on Capitol Hill, the man who covers The Congress for ABC News, Jim Wooten. That sounds like unanimous support, Jim. I don't know if there are any dissidents in Washington tonight, at least up there on Capitol Hill, but if so, have you heard from them?
Well, there are dissidents, as a matter of fact, Ted, but they are few and far between. For instance, Congressman Ron Dellums of California, who was one of those who filed suit against the president to stop this war, said tonight that he was outraged by this and hoped that, that other Americans would join him in this outrage. But by and large, from senators and members of the House, both sides of the aisle, those who voted for the resolution, those who voted against it, were supportive of the president and backing the troops.
We have, Jim, unfortunately, had all too much experience over the last 20, 30 years of seeing what happens during the early stages of a U.S. military action, not always a full-scale war, but during the early stages. And it is difficult, normally, for the critics to speak up at a time like this. Do you get the sense that a lot of people are just sort of holding back now to see how things go?
Well, you do have that sense, Ted. It's much of it, I think, is simply a carryover from the long debate that took place last Friday and Saturday, and then the final vote on the resolution. There are serious men and women up here who believe that going to war with Iraq at this point is not advised. And those people, I think, will now express that point of view if you ask them, but will wish to say, first of all, that nothing they say should give aid and comfort to Saddam Hussein, or nothing that they say should suggest any disloyalty to the troops or lack of support thereof.
Well, you raise an interesting point. As you know, I've just come back from the Middle East, and some of the Arab sources, many of them government sources with whom we spoke, said that Saddam Hussein counts heavily on the fact that he was watching very closely. And when he saw that Senate vote in particular, which, as you know, was 52 to 47, that his reaction was, well, it's 52 to 47 now, but when the casualties start coming home, that will reverse very, very quickly. Is he right?
I think he's wrong. I think he's wrong because the president got that kind of vote with a coalition of Republicans and Democrats that I would not think would change very much over the next few weeks or months.
All right, Jim Wooten, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a moment.
Some cars come and go, but every once in a while, they dance. Introducing the new G20 from Infiniti. A mid-sized luxury sedan that offers lots of room, all the amenities, and a nimble spirit that's every inch an Infiniti. Care to dance?
Critics rave over Hamlet. Emotionally charged, beautifully cinematic, Mel Gibson's Hamlet is strong and intelligent. Gibson is terrific, incredible. Glenn Close is near perfection. Go see it. Mel Gibson, Glenn Close, Hamlet. Rated PG, now playing at select theaters everywhere, January 18th.
To celebrate 30 years of 30-minute delivery, Domino's Pizza delivers the Big 3-0. Order a large pizza at regular price and get a medium with your favorite topping for just 30 cents more. A great deal like this won't last forever, so call now and ask for the Big 3-0. The Big 3-0. It's time for Domino's Pizza Big 3-0.
Mama keeps yellow dandy like a dandelion. Oh, you know I love my mama.
Clorox 2-Color Safe Bleach cleans, makes colors pop, better than detergent alone.
Mama's got the magic of Clorox 2.
When this was Grandfather's desk, every week Grandma'd polish it with Pledge for a beautiful shine with no buildup. Now that it's mine, I use Touchable Pledge.
With Pledge, smears just disappear.
Grandma's gonna love it.
Also in a trigger spray bottle.
This ABC News special report continues. Once again from Washington, here is Ted Koppel.
I was explaining to you before, I'm sure it's been explained to you many times and will be over the days ahead, that we are not able, as we frequently, and indeed almost always do on stories, to unilaterally cover those stories with our camera crews. These are pool operations in which pool cameramen are allowed to either go on an operation or see some aspect of it, and then that video is made available to all of us. Some of that pool video, fresh material, not the stuff that we saw about 20 minutes ago, has just come in from Saudi Arabia. We will be seeing it for the first time as you see it. Let's take a look at it. And then our ABC News analyst and consultant, weapons specialist, military specialist, Tony Quartersman, will be joining me. You will be hearing his voice. Tony, you and I were on the phone just a moment ago. You were making the point to me that we have focused so much attention on what we are seeing right now, namely the hardware, the weaponry, and we have not focused at all on the manpower, on the pilots who are flying these planes. Talk about them for a moment, would you?
Well, this is unquestionably one of the most elite, best trained, best educated group of people that has ever operated any piece of equipment anywhere. And it is sort of part of a team of some 450,000 American men and women whose educational standards, training standards, make it possible to use this technology. For all the advances in sensors and weapons and accuracy, in payload and all the rest, if it wasn't for the people out of there, the people willing to risk their lives in a volunteer force structure, nothing we are seeing could be remotely possible. And they, after all, risk their lives.
Now,
risk nothing.
Let me just interrupt you, because as you can see, and this feed is coming in live from Saudi Arabia, we're looking at some military men who are clearly putting their gas masks and apparently the anti-chemical weapon suits, the full chemical gear on. Just describe to us what they're doing, and you're going to have to infer, Tony, because I'm sure you don't know precisely what they're doing, whether they feared there would be some kind of a response.
We know from earlier reporting that there were several alerts